Hey everyone! Welcome back to Story Hive. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Let's jump into today's story. My dad clearly loves my half-brother more than me, and I'm tired of being in second place. So I'm giving him one last chance to pick me, or I'm cutting him out forever. I'm 18, male, and have a half-brother who is the same age as me. I'll call him Cameron. Our dad got two women pregnant around the same time. I'm older by 6 months. My dad chose Cameron's mom over mine, and they're married now. Cameron is his parents' only child. For as long as I can remember, I've always felt like I was just a backup son for my dad. I know he does love me, but not as much as Cameron. I live an hour and a half away from him, but he would always make the drive to come see me when I was younger, and still to this day, if I ever need anything, he'll make sure I get it. He took me on trips all the time, just me and him, but still I felt like an outsider. He would constantly put me second to Cameron. If we both had sports games on the same day, he would always go to Cameron's with his wife. Once, when I had an awards ceremony, he couldn't come because Cameron was sick. It was just a cold, by the way. When I wanted him to teach me how to drive, I could list a bunch of other examples. My dad would show up to my events, but if Cameron had something going on at the same time, he wouldn't come. Cameron and I aren't friends. We get along fine if we are together, but neither of us is going out of the way to talk to the other. I think he's spoiled and obviously our dad's favorite. Our dad and his mom did him no favors because his grades are bad and his life has no direction. He didn't apply to any colleges and won't even get a part-time job. We are both graduating high school this year. His school district released their graduation schedule after mine, and of course, our graduations are on the same day at the same time. We live an hour and a half apart. He's known my graduation date for weeks before Cameron learned his. We already had plans for him to come and spend the day here, but I knew as soon as I saw that schedule he was going to flake. At first, he said he wasn't sure what he was going to do. He's been avoiding the topic for weeks, but our graduations are on the 29th, so he has to decide now. Well, yesterday he took me to dinner. He told me that he was going to go to Cameron's graduation. He said it was because Cameron's grandparents weren't going to be able to make it, and Cameron would only have his mom, while I have my mom, stepdads, siblings, and grandparents all coming to mine. I'm not an idiot. It was just an excuse that I knew was coming. He tried to soften the blow by promising me he'd make up for it by taking me on a graduation trip anywhere I wanted to go, even though he had already promised me that months ago. He's taking his wife and Cameron on a family trip to Hawaii in June. It's supposed to be Cameron's graduation trip. Now, all of a sudden, that trip is supposed to also be a make-up for missing my graduation. So I told him, okay, I want to go to this one weekend event that is in the same week he's going to Hawaii. He told me he can't because that's when they're going to Hawaii. I didn't actually want to go to this event. I was just proving a point. I told him to postpone his Hawaii trip so he could take me to the event. He said he couldn't because everything is already paid for and non-refundable. I told him that he's missing my high school graduation, and the least he can do is make me the priority when it comes to the graduation trips. He said I'd have to pick a different weekend. I told him he doesn't actually care about making it up to me. He's only okay with what I want so long as it doesn't interfere with his real family. He denied it and told me to try to understand the position he's in. I told him straight up that he always chooses Cameron over me. For once I want to be the first choice, so I said I'd have a ticket ready for him, but if he doesn't come I'll know where I stand in his life. I don't care about a makeup trip either. He shows up and we still have a relationship. He told me that I was being unreasonable, and maybe I am, but I'm still standing my ground. I already know he's not going to come even after my ultimatum So am I wrong for throwing away our entire relationship over this? Update 1. Some people wanted an update on my post. My graduation was on Wednesday. Surprisingly, my dad actually chose me and attended my graduation, though not initially. After I gave him the ultimatum, he kept trying to talk to me as if nothing was wrong. He asked me to spend time with him a lot and asked when I was free, probably feeling guilty or trying to compensate for choosing Cameron. I never met with him. Cameron messaged me, telling me to stop being a prick and to get over it, as our dad was stressed out over the whole thing. I just blocked Cameron and moved on. On the day of my graduation, my dad told me he was coming down to spend the day with me before heading home to attend Cameron's graduation. At first, I told him not to bother because there was no point in showing up if he was going to leave before the actual ceremony, but he ended up coming anyway. We had a small get-together at my house with my mom's side of the family. My dad was there acting as if nothing was wrong, which was annoying. I refused to take pictures with him, telling him I'd take pictures at my graduation. If he wanted pictures with me, he could show up a few hours before the ceremony. He said he had to leave. I said goodbye forever, and he pulled me aside to talk. He tried to justify his decision again. I told him I was serious about what I said. I would not talk to him ever again. I made it clear that this wasn't something I would be mad about for a bit and then get over. I wouldn't call him crying in a few years to apologize. He asked why I was being like this, and I just let it all out. I told him I was sick and tired of being second place all the time. My entire life, I'd been told he couldn't show up for me because Cameron needed him, or he had promised Cameron first. Yet, the one time I had my graduation date set and planned first, he still canceled on me for Cameron. I asked him to give me one good reason why he had to go to Cameron's graduation over mine specifically. Nothing like this is a tough situation, or I can't be in two places at once, etc. He said it was because if he didn't go to Cameron's graduation, he would have to deal with a pissed-off wife and his entire home life would be tense. I asked why his wife and Cameron could never be the ones he apologized to and asked to try to understand. Why did I always have to be handed the short straw on purpose? He didn't have an answer. I told him I hoped Cameron got his life together because right now he's on a nosedive trajectory that ends with him still living at home rent-free in his 30s with a girlfriend he can't afford to give a ring to, let alone a wedding, and 3 kids who are being raised by my dad's wife. I didn't hear any more at that point. It's true Cameron's a loser. I told my dad good luck because Cameron's the one who's going to be taking care of him when he's old. I guarantee Cameron will take their money and put his parents in the absolute cheapest nursing home he can find. They failed him by spoiling him and treating him like he's perpetually 5 years old. Dad still ended up leaving anyway. I refused to hug him and told him I was done with him. That kind of ruined my mood. But once I got to school and started hanging with my friends, I decided to let it. I wanted to enjoy my graduation night and just forget all the BS. After the ceremony, I was shocked to see my dad walking toward me. I was positive he was going to Cameron's graduation. Like a pew-pew to my head. Get this answer right, are you unalive? Well, I guess I'd be unalive because I was 100 sure he'd choose Cameron. He already did, but I guess he turned around and came back. He hugged me and told me he was sorry for everything and how he treated me, and that he did love me just as much as Cameron, even if he'd been bad at showing it. I don't really believe that last part, but he showed up, so that's what I'm focusing on. Cameron was pissed, of course, and messaged me from a different number. He called me a crybaby and selfish, saying Dad only went to my graduation because I threw a fit. He didn't understand that it wasn't me having a tantrum. It was a last straw situation for me. I just sent him a picture of me and our dad at my graduation and told him to get over it. Then I blocked that number too. Screw him. I'm glad he knows what it's like to be second choice just once. I'm sure our dad is already bending over backward to make it up to Cameron anyway, so he'll live. Our joint graduation party is going to be awkward, but hopefully we'll just keep our distance from each other. Oh, and don't worry, I'm not delusional. I know my dad is just going to go back to his same old routine, and now if I ever bring up his unfairness again, he'll always be able to throw in my face that he came to my graduation over Cameron. It'll probably be his trump card. Not going to lie, it did feel good to have everyone crap on my dad with me in my last post because I was pissed off at him when I posted. I know that he does love me, though. Still, I think I'm going to take some advice I got in that post. I'm not cutting my dad off, but I'm going to stop trying. I have a lifetime of him awarding me the silver medal no matter how well I do, and I'm tired of it. Cameron can be his favorite son uncontested from now on. I'm just going to live my life and keep my dad at arm's length. I'm not going to try to force him to prove his love for me anymore. Update 2. After the whirlwind of my graduation and the intense fallout with my dad, things have settled into a new normal. My dad did end up coming to my graduation after all, which was a huge surprise given how certain I was that he would choose Cameron. It was a bittersweet moment seeing him. There was reassuring, but the tension and hurt from everything that led up to it lingered. After the ceremony, I spent time with friends and tried to focus on enjoying the night. The arrival of my dad was unexpected, and while his apology and attempt to make up for missing my graduation meant something, it didn't erase the years of feeling second place. He claimed he loved me just as much as Cameron, even if he hadn't always shown it well. I'm still skeptical about that claim, but for now I'm trying to focus on the fact that he did come through when it mattered. Cameron, on the other hand, wasn't pleased. He sent me messages from a different number, calling me selfish and a crybaby, insisting that Dad only showed up because I made a scene. I was frustrated by his lack of understanding and blocked him after sending a picture of me and Dad from my graduation. It felt good to stand my ground and show that I wasn't going to be pushed around any longer. Since then, things have been awkward but manageable. The joint graduation party we had to attend was definitely tense, but we managed to keep our distance and avoid too much drama. My dad seems to be trying hard to make things right, though I'm wary. I'm sure he's also bending over backward to make things up to Cameron as expected. I've decided not to cut my dad out of my life completely, but to keep him at arm's length. I've accepted that no matter how well I do, I'll probably always come in second to Cameron in his eyes. It's a hard pill to swallow, but I'm choosing to focus on my own life and not force my dad to prove his love. I'm tired of being the backup plan and ready to move on, making the most of my own achievements and relationships. The dynamic has shifted, and while I'm still processing everything, I feel a sense of liberation in finally standing up for myself. I'm determined to live my life on my own terms, letting go of the need for my dad's validation and focusing instead on what brings me fulfillment. Update 3. In the weeks following my graduation, life has continued to unfold in a way I hadn't fully anticipated. The fallout from my confrontation with my dad has left its mark, but there's been some unexpected clarity as well. After the graduation, my dad seemed genuinely apologetic. He kept reaching out, trying to mend things and reconnect. While I appreciated his effort, I found myself still grappling with a mix of emotions. It was clear that the old patterns hadn't magically vanished. The underlying issue of feeling like a second-choice son still lingered despite his attempts to make things right. Cameron's reaction was as I expected. His anger didn't really surprise me. It was more the way he seemed to disregard my feelings that stung. He continued to message me from different numbers, calling me a crybaby and accusing me of stirring up unnecessary drama. Each message felt like a jab, but I didn't let it get to me. Blocking him was my way of drawing a line and preserving my own peace. The joint graduation party was as awkward as anticipated. Dad and Cameron's presence was a constant reminder of the tensions between us. While we managed to avoid any major conflicts, it was clear that the relationship dynamic had shifted. I noticed Dad making an effort to balance his time and attention, but it felt forced and strained. The effort was appreciated, but it didn't quite bridge the gap that had formed over the years. In the midst of all this, I've been focusing on my own path. I've embraced the idea of living my life on my own terms and not waiting for validation from Dad. I'm finding fulfillment in my achievements and relationships outside of the family dynamic that has so often felt limiting. It's been freeing to prioritize my own needs and goals rather than constantly being a backup plan. Dad continues to reach out, and while I respond, I keep my interactions measured. I'm cautious about letting old patterns creep back in. I've made peace with the fact that I may never be his first choice, but I'm determined not to let that define my worth. The experience has taught me a lot about setting boundaries and valuing myself. I'm moving forward with a renewed sense of self and a commitment to building my own happiness, independent of the complex family dynamics. Update 4. Since my graduation and the emotional standoff with my dad, things have settled into a new, if uneasy, rhythm. It's been a period of reflection and gradual change. My dad did come to my graduation, which was a big step. His presence, though, felt more like a token gesture than a genuine resolution. He's been trying hard to make amends, sending frequent messages and suggesting we spend time together. His attempts to reconnect are genuine, but there's a lingering tension. The old dynamics haven't fully disappeared, and I can't help but feel that the effort to mend things sometimes feels like an obligation rather than a heartfelt desire. Cameron's continued resentment hasn't made things any easier. Even after blocking his initial messages, he found new ways to reach out, trying to guilt me into feeling bad about the situation. His insistence that I'm being selfish and his continued attempts to undermine my feelings have only reinforced my decision to distance myself. I'm learning to let go of the need for his approval or understanding. The joint graduation party was indeed awkward. Dad and Cameron were both there, and while we kept our distance, the air was thick with unspoken tension. It was clear that the relationships between us are strained, but I've been trying to focus on what I can control, my own life, and how I move forward from here. I've been taking this time to build a life for myself, focusing on personal growth and finding happiness on my own terms. I'm investing in friendships and exploring new interests, and it's been refreshing. I've stopped expecting my dad to fill the role of a supportive father in the way I once hoped. Instead, I'm leaning into the people and activities that truly bring me joy and satisfaction. Dad continues to reach out with offers to make up for missed time. I appreciate the gestures but remain cautious. I'm determined not to let old patterns reassert themselves. It's been a balancing act, managing my expectations while trying to keep the door open for a relationship that feels authentic and not driven by guilt. As for Cameron, I'm no longer investing emotional energy into the conflict. I've come to terms with the fact that our relationship might never be close, and that's okay. I'm focusing on creating a positive future for myself and building relationships that are based on mutual respect and understanding. Overall, the situation has taught me a lot about resilience and self-worth. I'm learning to prioritize my own needs and not let family dynamics dictate my happiness. It's an ongoing journey, but for now I'm moving forward with a renewed sense of purpose and a commitment to my own well-being. Thanks for tuning in to today's Reddit story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss out on more amazing stories. See you next time.